The grand opening is over, and the construction is 99.9% finished. Just a couple of small things left to do. So I thought I'd show everybody around. This is Wiley & Will's Hangar Flying Cafe, which features a lot of antiques as well as a gallery of 1920s aviators and aviatrixes. It's a great place to come, as I just did, and have a cup of coffee after a wonderful flight in a 1930s biplane, which this morning I flew this black and red beauty, the 1934 Waco YMF-3, on an absolutely glorious morning. But as you see, we've got 30,000 feet here, built in 1943. It was originally a private contract flying base for the Army Air Force. And that yellow and blue airplane over in the corner was one that was flown here, or one like it was, many like it were flown here in the 1940s for the 18 months that it was open. Here's a 1938 Coke machine. Even the bathrooms have been refinished, or built, I should say, in period correct decor with antique lighting. We aren't a slave to the 1920s and 30s, but we've tried to honor the tradition of the period. You'll notice the floor, which is Swiss tracks, is made in a pattern very reminiscent of the 1930s. Over in the gallery is a lot of mementos and information about a flying show from the 1930s, the Jimmy Allen Flying Club for kids. A 1934 tracker used as a tug, and a whole bunch of Waco biplanes. We have 10 Waco biplanes in the collection. Here's a ground vehicle, a 1930 Model AA Ford fuel truck. And back in the corner, one of the many engines we have on display, as well as antique propellers. The museum isn't crowded, but it is full. We have 22 aircraft on display currently out of the 27 in the collection. They are some ready to fly at a moment's notice. All of the airplanes fly, however, except for a couple that are under restoration. Here I'm walking past the rare, the only Curtiss-Wright B-14R ever made. It has its own type certificate. And a 1929 Fleet Model 1. As I walk around to take a quick look at an absolute treasure of the museum, which is a 1929 Obenchain Boyer chemical truck, which was restored by Ken Soderberg, who did an absolutely beautiful job. In this gallery, we have stories of the entrepreneurs and business people who built the companies that in the 1920s and 30s fueled the U.S. economy, next to a 1943 Jeep from a similar airfield in Kansas. I'll take a quick look out on the several thousand square foot patio, which overlooks the flight line and has an outdoor kitchen for parties, burgers and hot dogs, and enjoyment of flying. As we pass a 1936 Porterfield, heading towards the 1928 Stearman C-3MB, the only one of its kind in the world, which was originally a mail plane flying in the West next to a 1931 Ford Model A mail truck. The airlines in America were created by the Postal Department, basically, as contract flyers. That's how airlines got started. So we have the postal story, the airline story to tell as well. Back here in the corner is the smallest airplane in our collection, a 1929 design of a parakeet, and a beautiful mural that we had custom designed and painted by a local artist. Aviation, symbol of progress, really sums up the 1920s and 30s. Here is a Peton pole, a 1929 design. This is a home built. Thousands have been built over the last nearly 100 years. We believe that ours, with its Model A engine, is probably the most original in the United States. Another very rare aircraft right here in the middle is a Fairchild Model C-8A, the very first of the Fairchild 24 series. It's one of only 2 or 3 left flying in the world. next to a giant Stearman, very common, but also very important during the war. And that's parked next to a Culver Cadet, which had the second airplane to have retractable landing gear for general aviation, very fast, 140 miles an hour, and also a racing airplane. So we have racing to talk about. And it's parked right next to a beacon from the 1920s. From 1924 to 1932, airmail pilots made their way across the United States by flying beacon to beacon. Those were located every 5 to 25 miles, and there were 1,500 of them scattered across the United States. We're lucky to have an original. And as we walk into what we call the hallway, we pass a 1929 Kenner-powered Fairchild KR-21, a rare and beautiful light trainer from the late 20s, parked right next to a beautiful Waco taper wing from 1929. From 1927 to 1930, Waco built 1,600 Model 10s. About 1,300 were straight wings, and 300 of them were tapered wings like this one, which were a little more aerobatic, a little quicker. I'm walking now past the shop, which we'll just poke our head into. We have Waldo Wright's Flying Service joining us in the spring, and in Rob's shop, he will be restoring 2 to 3 aircraft at a time, including over in the corner this 1929 Waco Model 10, which is a straight wing version of the plane we just looked at. Also, here in the middle of the hangar at the moment is an Aeronca C3 from 1936. This is an incredibly rare little airplane. It was Aeronca's effort to make flying available to the common man as an inexpensive hobby, selling for less than $2,000. As we walk back out into the hallway, we'll look at just a couple of other airplanes. One is a Monocoop 90 from 1934. Don Luscombe designed this airplane before he created his own airplane company. It's a gorgeous Art Deco example, fast at 140 miles an hour, maneuverable, and above all, fun to fly and gorgeous. And next to it is a much more pedestrian airplane built in Lincoln, Nebraska, the Lincoln Page PTW. There were only 5 of these airplanes made out of the 84 airplanes that the Lincoln Company built. This is the only one that survives. And it, like many of the other airplanes in the collection, features a very rare engine, a 1925 design of a Warner 125 horsepower radial engine that is greased rather than oiled in its top. So as we look back down the museum, we see the beautiful red steel, which we've painted black so that it stands out against the newly insulated roof. When we redid this hangar, we kept the red steel and the concrete, and literally everything else is new, but it was restored to pay homage to and look like it did when it was originally built in 1943. This is the Dream Waco's shop, which is my personal workshop. And here we have projects of all kinds, as well as storage for parts and other pieces that we need to operate this fleet of 27 airplanes. Even back here on the corner, on these shelves, are an entire airplane. It doesn't look like it, but someday those shelves will be converted into a flying antique aircraft. Coming back around, we'll just finish our tour very briefly with a quick look into the library and into the museum office. The office is my private office, actually, and it's designed, though, as an exhibit for the museum. Full of Art Deco antiques, it's designed to look like an executive office would in the 1930s, with a 1936 DC-3 beverage cart in the corner, a 1932 Philco radio bar, furniture by Donald Deskey, light fixtures from the Chrysler Building in New York, all from the 1930s. along with original movie posters. And then finally is our modest but growing museum library. Everything here, periodicals, books, reference materials, radio, and even the fan, are pre-1945. Nothing that was published after 1945, and no artifacts that were made after 1942 can be permitted in the collection. Well, that's it. We have, I guess in this gallery, one thing I did forget to mention are there's many signs and logos of the companies that once built these aircraft. These were all painted by a local artist. And as I pan back around the museum, one last feature for visitors are that we have video monitors periodically scattered through the museum where you can come up and, using a touchscreen system, find out about any of these airplanes. You can also read about them on placards, and there's a QR code for each one of them or each artifact displayed in the museum to help you learn more about them. So I hope you'll come to the Caldwell Collection at Mustang Field. We are now open. We're open by appointment, and we're looking forward to hosting you.